Hey guys, Preston here. Welcome to another video. There might be music in the background. That is my dad, hitting the iron. I usually do. Yeah, it doesn't look like it right, but I've been doing it. But I've been kind of sick, so I think he's doing that. I'm gonna do my draft grades for the AFC North. You saw my video before this one, which was me ranking players, and you can see some of my rankings that I always turn out. Like Jabril went before the other two safeties I mentioned, for example, and so yeah, we're gonna go through each division in a series of videos. So I think it's 8 videos, and we're gonna do the conference my favorite teams in first, just to get it over with, because I hate 3 of the teams and I love 1 of the teams. So I'm gonna eliminate all bias though, as this is the most in-depth I've ever been with the draft. I've had NFL Network back, so I watched all the shows that led up to the draft, all the discussions of the draft, so I feel like I'm semi-knowledgeable, or at least more than I was before. And so we're going to start with the Bengals. This is how I took the screenshots. Sorry, my fish are doing something. But I usually have my phone that I'm recording with. That's where I got the list from, usually. CBS Sports is a nice list, and they have their own guy grading. I don't think I'll do his grades exactly. I don't know if I'll end up with an exact grade, but I'm kind of just going to talk about the picks, at least the guys I know a decent amount of. So like the earlier picks I can discuss more. Later picks I can mention them, but I'll just be like either don't know too much about them, or I'll say don't like this guy, or it's a decent pickup position-wise. So yeah, the Bengals' first pick was John Ross, wide receiver from Washington, which surprised me and it surprised my friend I was watching it with. Well, we were in a call during the whole thing because I had no one else to watch it with, and it surprised both of us because it wasn't necessarily the Bengals' top need. For the most part, I saw them going defensive. I think they all defense usually, some sort of pass rusher, because they let like Ray Maluga go and stuff, so they need linebacker help, defensive end help, something like that. So like maybe Derek Barnett, he was still there because the Eagles took him later. But Derek Barnett, something like that, right? And so when they picked John Ross, it caught me off guard. He was the last of the top 3 receivers to go, so I guess the receivers went faster than everyone thought they would. It's not that it's a bad pick, because obviously Ross is a good receiver and it'll go well with AJ Green. Because obviously most of the teams will be focused on AJ Green, kind of like how Antonio Brown. They're both kind of guys that get double teamed. So if you have another guy available, so like a John Ross, that he'll have a lot of opportunities. I'm trying to figure where he'd be plugged in. I guess probably a 2 or 3 ranked receiver on their depth chart. So it's not terrible. It's just wasn't their main need. So I guess, yeah, CBS Sports gave it a B. I kind of agree with like B- kind of thing, where it's good pick, not your top need though. Then we got the most controversial pick in the entire draft, which is running back Joe Mixon out of Oklahoma. I wasn't a fan of this pick at all. Obviously, he's a good player. He's got talent, but he had the off-the-field issue. If you don't know, he got suspended a whole year from Oklahoma for this, and the tape was released. He punched a girl in the face, like dead in the face. I think she had to go to the hospital for a while and stuff. And the fact that the tape made it even worse for him. And so obviously people thought his stock was going to fall, as they were really wondering who was going to have the guts to pick him. And it ended up being the Bengals, which I really question, because the Bengals have picked up questionable character people before. And that's part of the reason why they haven't won a playoff game in forever. Because last time they had the chance to was like the year before last year's season, and they were gonna beat Pittsburgh, but their 2 questionable characters on their teams screwed it up for them with a targeting penalty and a yelling at the refs, which is another penalty, obviously. So the fact that they went with another guy with character concerns really makes me wonder, because it's not like they've been the best at controlling that. It feels like they got a pretty lax locker room. As part of the criticism against Marvin Lewis, as he hasn't been in control too much. So it's interesting. It seems like he's trying to redeem himself, but you never know with this kind of thing. And overall, I thought their 2 running back tandem they got right now is decent. So it's just a fill-in thing. I feel like they should have focused more on the other end of the ball but they do later, and it kind of works out then. So, for example, the next pick's probably the best pick, I think, so far, is Jordan Willis, defensive end from Kansas State. I didn't watch much of him. I didn't hear much of him. I did hear he was a solid defensive end, though, and really good for that third-round value. So he has potential to actually start, and which that's nice to find in those later rounds. So that's a decent pick right there. I like that one. I didn't like the Mixon. I like that one. But right away after that, the next round, they drafted another defensive end, Carl Lawson from Auburn. I think he had some off-the-field issues, too, just with consistency. Being kind of lazy. I'm lazy. But, yeah, they give him a B+ on this. So, CBS liked their draft, giving it a B, B, A, B+. I think John Ross is like a B-. Nixon, I'll go C-, just because they have running backs. And I didn't like the fact they traded up for him. But, that happens sometimes. Yeah. Jordan Willis worked out, though. And not where we don't know if he worked out, but I like that pick, so I'll stick with the A. And Carl Lawson, probably just a B, because they drafted a defensive end before him. Next on their list was Josh Malone, wide receiver from Tennessee, which is, again, interesting. They already had good receivers, and you spent your first-round pick on a receiver. Not quite sure why you would use another pick on a wideout when you use your first-round pick on a wideout. But from what I heard, he's a good wideout, so I guess if they're just trying to boom up the offense, I guess, is working. But don't know if he's going to fit. That's the real question. I'm giving that like a C. Then you got Ryan Velasco, defensive tackle from Michigan, which is, once you get these later rounds, it doesn't really matter. I won't really grade him. I don't know too much about him. They gave it a C-, I guess. And they got Jake Elliott, the kicker, which is interesting. In the 5th round, I'm sure he would have been available later probably. And I believe they signed a kicker, Randy Bullock or something, after he had a good season. He filled in for Chris Boswell for Pitt for a little bit. He did good, and so the Bengals picked him up, and he did a solid job, so I'm not sure why they needed that. That's an interesting call on their part, too. The Bengals and Browns had the most picks in the draft, so this is the longest video for the divisions you'll hear me talking about. Then we got J.J. Dillman, offensive tackle, Utah. I'll just read the rest of these. Jordan Evans, outside linebacker, Oklahoma. They did need an outside linebacker. I don't know how much a 6th-round pick will contribute, but they did need one. So there's that. Brandon Wilson, corner, Houston. So it's another second Houston corner. Last year's 1st-round pick was the Houston corner, William Jackson III. Hasn't really played yet due to injury, so who knows. Then you got Mason Shrike, tight end Buffalo. Don't know too much about him. They have the tight end, obviously. I guess he's in case, maybe a depth guy, because Eifert did get hurt last season. So there's that. Then you have that's their whole draft overall. I don't think it was the best draft targeting their top needs, but it was a good draft talent-wise. So I guess it'd be like a B. The letter grades will wait, and I'll just compare them. All 4 teams, I'll say who had the better draft. Next up, for another 11 picks, we got the Cleveland Browns. Yes, Dr. Pepper it is. Came into my hand out of nowhere. Don't worry about it. It's magic. But the Browns actually surprised me this year because they drafted good. They actually did good. Last year they did pretty good, but I feel like more people in this year's draft will pan out than last year's draft. Last year, they pretty much only said they good because Corey Coleman wasn't a bust. But a lot of moves they did last year are set up this year. And so they had 3 first-round picks this year, which means they're going to have to pay him more, but it works out for him. We got Myles Garrett, defensive end, Texas A&M. He was highly regarded as the best player available in the draft, and as you can expect, they chose him with the first pick, so I guess perfect value, and they got the best player available, so that's obviously good. And they have holes everywhere, so it's not like they could pretty much draft any position, and it wouldn't be like, oh, they didn't need that help. Their main goal, they should have been picking the best available. So they got Myles Garrett with their first pick. They traded down with Houston, so Houston could get their quarterback. We'll talk about that with the AFC South video. But in that pick from Houston, they ended up getting Jabril Peppers, strong safety out of Michigan. He's kind of a everywhere player, and I guess that kind of works out for a team like Cleveland because they have needs everywhere. So it's going to be interesting how they apply them though to different spots. I'm curious. It wasn't like, so obviously it helped him out, I guess. I don't know if he was a first-round talent, but he could pan out, so we'll see how it goes. Then we got David Njoku, who was my second best tight end on the board. They did release Gary Barnidge shortly after drafting him, so I guess they didn't want to pay him anymore, which they got money, and he had a pretty good season last year, so I'm interested to see where he'll end up. But this is his replacement, so I guess this is a rare change in where they're not just adding to the team, they're just subbing out someone who's pretty capable. This is David Njoku. I'm surprised he was still on the board, obviously, because the Giants went with a different tight end instead of Njoku, which caught me off guard because I thought he'd be a second-round talent, the guy the Giants went with. So Njoku, yeah, he's good value for that pick, the 29th pick. They traded up to get, and I like that pick, though. So far, all those three Browns picks I liked a lot. Then you got DeShone Kizer in the second round, the quarterback. So smart on them. They didn't blow up on one of these quarterbacks early with their first three picks. The first round, they had some floated quarterback in the first round. So Kizer, they took a chance on him. They're like, we got a lot of picks. Might as well. We got three good players already. Let's just take a chance on Kizer, see if he pans out, because a lot of times quarterbacks haven't always worked out for Cleveland. But I don't think Kizer will start right away. It's probably going to be whoever the heck they got there right now. Barkley, probably first, and then if Kizer needs to come in, he can come in. But I don't see him as the permanent guy. It's possible he could pan out, but I still think it's possible for them to go for quarterback in next year's draft, which is supposed to have a lot stronger quarterback class than this year's draft. So continuing on, their third-round pick, they went with Larry Ogunjobi. Sorry if I butchered that name. Defensive tackle from Charlotte. From I heard, he's a good defensive tackle, and it was a good value pick right there. Another need, because the whole team had needs, so I guess going kind of best available there was a good move. So I like that pick. He has, on a team like the Browns, he can start right away, more than likely, because of how bad they are, so that's a good pick. Same with Howard Wilson, cornerback from Houston. They don't have a good secondary. They've been killed in secondary. So it's nice to get someone who can possibly help out in the fourth round. See how it goes. They also got Roderick Johnson, offensive tackle from Florida State. I heard he was a pretty good offensive tackle. They gave him an A+, so he must have slipped in this draft, and they liked it a lot. So he's got potential to help with that struggling line, along with the free agency moves they made. They drafted another defensive tackle, Caleb Brantley, they said he has a better talent than those in the 6th round, but he had some off-the-field stuff. So it should be interesting how that pans out. Then you got kicker Zane Gonzalez, which I like that pick. I like Zane Gonzalez. I learned about him through other YouTubers' videos about college football, and because they would go to ASU, Arizona State, and so they said he made some sick kicks, and he did. He won like the best kicker award last season and stuff. So that's a good spot. Why not get a kicker that late, 7th round, if you don't have one? So I like that pick. And Matthew Days, running back from NC State. I guess it's not terrible. Might as well get some depth. You already got Duke Johnson and Isaiah Crowell or whatever, who actually did pretty good last season for a 1-15 team. I think the Browns did really good on their draft, and they have potential to elite. They will be better than last season for sure. I think they'll do better than 1-15. So next up, we'll go with my favorite team. But I'm going to be honest, obviously I think I'm going to be the most critical of my own team because that's how a lot of fans are. So I'm a Steelers fan, and they drafted this year. Pretty boring draft. It's what Pittsburgh does. I don't think you'll never see Pittsburgh trade any of their picks. They always got the same. They got a pick each round, except for this case, they got an extra pick given to them by the NFL. It wasn't something they traded for. So no trades. They just drafted at the spot they were given. So nothing too exciting. And they filled positions in need, sometimes with questionable goals. So first pick was T.J. Watt, outside linebacker from Wisconsin. I like that pick because it fills a need. It's basically replacing Jarvis Jones, who didn't really pan out for sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. Didn't really pan out for the Steelers because he's a bust. The whole 2013 draft class was kind of a bust, if you ask me, and ask most people. So TJ Watt's the guy's going to fill in. He's going to take some reps to take the pressure off Harrison, who's old at 38, probably doesn't have much left in his tank, and will eventually obviously take over for Harrison if Watt is not a bust. Hopefully he won't be. I don't feel like he'll be, but you never know with the way the NFL is now. So in the second round is the questionable pick. They went Juju Smith-Schuster, wide receiver, USC. It's only questionable because it was not their biggest need, but it is a nice pick. It's good value. He is a good wideout. And we have had some questions at receiver, which you may be crazy considering Pittsburgh has probably one of the best offenses in the league. But Martavis Bryant has been questionable with he's suspended all last season, and he came back after this pick happened. He kind of got in a Twitter fight with another receiver on the team. But he had a good point. He might be a replacement for Sammy Coates, who was our third guy, but he hasn't really been crazy good. He had a hand injury, and he's known for dropping passes every now and then. So I consider him as more of like a potential starting three or four receiver guy who can fill in if anything bad happens or anything doesn't work out for the other receivers. Because the rest of the guys did their best to fill in, but it's not like they're crazy good. It's like DeMarcus Ayers and Kobe Hamilton. I like them, but I don't think they're really a solid, number 3, number 2 receiver. Maybe a slot guy, So Smith fills a need, kind of, not the most important need. The most important need for me gets addressed in the third round, which is Cameron Sutton, cornerback from Tennessee. Now, it's a good pick for a third-round pick. He did good. I think he led his highest Tennessee record for balls swatted away or whatever, and I hope he can start. The Pittsburgh Secondary is not the greatest. They did address it in last year's draft with Artie Burns and Sean Davis. Mike Mitchell hasn't been terrible, but the main problems is the corners. William Gay, I love him to death, but he's getting old and he can't cover that much anymore. Ross Cockrell is just terrible. He's just not good. And so Cameron Sutton, maybe he can step in and have a starting role. I mean, if the draft goes well as last year's draft where we had our first 3 rounds, all of them started, which is nice. If you can ever do that, that's great. So if that works out, we should be good. We drafted 2 corners this year's draft, which is nice. And we have a corner we drafted in the second round a couple years back who's been plagued by injury. And so hopefully if he doesn't get injured, he gets a chance to prove himself this season, and maybe he'll work out. Senquez Golson is his name. Smaller guy from Ole Miss, but he's been dealing with injury, so maybe he'll fill in that role that I've been wanting to. Anything, if the secondary can if Sutton and Golson come in and they work out, that'd be crazy. Pittsburgh could be loaded. Then we got, this is a pick I like just for personal reasons. It's kind of not based off the player and the need. It's based off the player and the name and the story behind it. That is James Conner, picked in our third round pick, which is, if you don't know James Conner's story, he is a cancer survivor, and it's nice because not that part's nice, but obviously he had a good story coming back from cancer. He helps kids with cancer now, but he played for Pittsburgh, the Panthers, into college, and they play in Heinz Field, and so they got a chance to be with the Steelers a lot. And Pittsburgh's such a tight-knit community, the city. So I've seen a lot of Steelers fans who are just hoping that the Steelers would end up getting James Conner, and we did. And it fills a role. It's a replacement role again because we didn't re-sign D'Angelo Williams, so he's going to fill in and be our second back, kind of take the pressure off Bell, and in case Bell gets hurt, because Bell is amazing, obviously, but he's been suspended before with the weed. Which is whatever, and he's been injured with the knee a couple times because of the stupid Bengals. But, yeah, so he looks like a solid number 2 guy, potential to be really good later on. So then next up, after him in our 4th round pick, we got our potential future replacement for Ben Roethlisberger and Josh Dobbs, quarterback from Tennessee. Who knows if he'll pan out? He is a 4th round pick. They did today, as of when I'm filming this video, Pittsburgh released our 3rd string quarterback. So Dobbs is coming in to replace him, and so hopefully we use Dobbs as more the backup instead of Andrew Jones. Ben says he's going to work with Dobbs, and he wants Dobbs to be that quarterback of the future. So hopefully that works out. Worst case scenario is just a backup QB we picked up in the 4th round. Fifth round pick is another corner. Don't know how it'll turn out. Obviously, fifth round picks don't usually become anything, but sometimes it does. It's how the draft works, right? Like sixth round picks. Like Antonio Brown was the sixth round pick. James Harrison was undrafted. Tom Brady, sixth round pick. Stuff like that. But this is Brian Allen, cornerback from Utah. He was a converted receiver, which is why he fell so low. But I think one of the nice things about him is his build. He is tall. He's 6'3", like 200 something pounds. He's a big corner. He's probably the biggest one we have now. And if he pans out and he can learn well, it'd be nice to have a guy of his size on the corners, the secondary. Then the most questionable pick by far is Chris Holba in the 6th round, long snapper out of Louisville. I wasn't too mad with this pick, obviously, because it's the 6th round. It's not like you're going to find anything crazy. But the long snapper isn't really a position you draft. It's a position you just sign one of the undrafted college players later in the free agent frenzy afterwards. They said they liked him enough to draft him, so it's whatever. And we didn't. It's not like we're going to find anyone great in the 6th round anyways. The last pick by Pittsburgh is Keon Adams, defensive end, Western Michigan. I liked Western Michigan a lot. Obviously, 7th round picks don't usually start right away, but I could see him making an impact on special teams and practice squad. Overall, I like the Steelers draft. There were some questionable choices, but they all filled needs, just not the top needs. So one more team. Then this video's done, and that was long, but just bear with me here. Final team on the list is the Baltimore Ravens, who by far had the most questionable choices. It wasn't really surprising because I know how the Ravens are, but I'm fine with it. Honestly, if you ask me, I'm okay with the way they drafted because I hate them. So as long as they do picks that aren't the best for them, it works out for me. Their first pick was Marlon Humphrey, cornerback, Alabama. He got a B rating by CBS Sports. It's not a bad pick. So obviously, it's always nice to have another corner on your team, but I think they had him drafted a bit early. I think there's better corners available at that 16th pick. They went with Humphrey, which it's not a bad pick. But the whole draft for the Ravens, the part I was talking about questionable is the whole draft, except 2 picks, was all defense, and the 2 offensive picks were offensive linemen. And so something that they've struggled with the most, obviously they have a great defense. If you look at their rankings on defense, they're doing great, but it's their offense. It's a problem. They don't have receivers, and they don't have anything like that. And they went with Humphrey, which is just insane. I guess the only logic you could have is that all the top 3 receivers were gone already, but that doesn't explain the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. Like all those picks, the rest of the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round picks were all defense too, which then you could have got like a Chris Godwin. Maybe they could have got Juju Smith before Pittsburgh did, for example, but they just chose not to. They just kept going defense. It's questionable because their defense is good enough. If you ask me, I didn't see that many holes, but it's Baltimore and they'll do whatever they want. They'll keep drafting Alabama players on defense all day long. I guess it's not a bad pick, just questionable how they didn't go offense at all. So they got Marlon Humphrey, Tyus Bowser, and I like Bowser. Something Baltimore always does for some reason is they draft players that I like. Like last season, I'm a Notre Dame fan, so last season they drafted Ronnie Stanley, obviously, and I was high on Kenneth Dixon too. I watched him in college. I liked him a lot, and the Ravens went with him too. So yeah, it happens a lot. So they got Tyus Bowser from Houston, and I like Houston as a school. So obviously, of course, draft another player I like. He's good. I don't know why they drafted 2 outside linebackers. They also got Tim Williams in the 3rd round, which he's a good player. Still, questionable. I guess the only reason one of the guys would make sense is maybe a Suggs replacement later, but this is a team that probably needs to get better now. But, not terrible pick. Chris Wormley, defensive tackle from Michigan in the 3rd round. Nico Siragusa, offensive guard, San Diego State, and Jermaine Ellimore, offensive guard, Texas A&M, were their 4th and 5th round picks, the 2 offensive players. They got A grades, so I guess maybe they need some help on the line. But who knows if they'll start their 4th and 5th rounders. Probably just good overall value there. And then they ended up with Chuck Clark, which was their lowest graded pick at C+, a free safety, mainly because they already got a free safety. So yeah, that is overall. If I had to rank these drafts, if we're being honest, I'd say Browns had the best draft, Steelers had the second best draft, Bengals had the third best draft, and Ravens had the fourth. All of them did pretty well. There's not a ton of them where I'm like, wow, that was terrible. It's just the Ravens failed to address the offense almost entirely, and the Bengals got almost opposite, where I feel like they didn't address the defense enough and they made some questionable choices. So yeah, thank you guys for so much. That was the worst I've ever pronounced it. Alright. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. That is my AFC North discussion for the draft picks or grades, etc., whatever you're going to call it. Stay tuned. The next thing I'll do is AFC South, I think. Yeah, we'll go through the AFC first and the NFC. Let me know what you think of these teams' drafts and if you would have ranked them differently than me. This is Cam and Preston signing out. See you later.